All right, do we put the ginger here? No, is there a way? No, it looks like warts on the side of that thing. It's always sort of that decision, like, I really want to incorporate this ingredient, but gosh, that just doesn't look cute. What's shakin' bacon? I'm Joni Simon. Welcome to my studio. This is where I do food photography. So if you're into that, you go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And today we are talking about one of my favorite books for food photography inspiration, because I publish new photos over on my Instagram account every single day, and many times they are brand new photos because I am shooting every single day. It's my personal discipline to continue to improve my craft. And so how do you stay inspired? Where do these great ideas come from? Well, certainly they're not all just inside my head. So I want to share with you one of my favorite resources. So the last couple videos on this channel have been super duper long, so I'm just gonna cut right to the chase and keep it simple. So this book right here, The Flavor Bible, is one of my top favorite, like definitely in the top 5 books that I own for food photography. This is not a food photography book. This is not a food styling book. This is a book created for chefs by chefs. And so this book I was turned on to by my friend Chef Justin Beckett of Beckett's Table in Southern Rail here in Phoenix, and he's been a great mentor to me in the culinary space. And about 2 years ago, he recommended this book to me. And so the premise of the Flavor Bible is kind of as it sounds, is what are all of the flavors out there and how can we combine flavors together to create harmonious, enjoyable experiences for our palate. And so this is completely a reference book. What happened was the people who created this book were really on a quest to find out what are the ultimate flavor combinations, right? Like they're sort of the basic ones that we know, right? That tomatoes and basil and mozzarella all really work together. But what are some of those lesser known culinary combinations, flavor combinations that are really enjoyable? So they went out and interviewed some of the top chefs out there. I believe it was nearly 24 different chefs to get their input on their favorite applications for various ingredients. So you open it up and it's all organized alphabetically by ingredient. So for example, here in the B section, we've got beets, and it tells us that beets are a year-round produce, that they're kind of sweet, and things that you can do with beets. You can bake them, you can boil them, you can turn them to a carpaccio, turn them into chips, roast them, steam them, turn them into a soup. I mean, you can already see inspiration starts flowing. But then where the real magic is in seeing, well, what goes with beets? And, you know, we could probably think of sort of some of those things that we typically pair with beets. You know, I've seen a lot of beets with goat cheese, but we've seen a lot of recipes of beets with goat cheese. So how do we create something that's new and interesting and different and also informed by expertise of world-class chefs? Well, things that also go with beets are curry, capers and cabbage, radishes. I've never thought about radishes with beets, but actually, yeah, that would be a really great combo there. And the opening chapters of this book are also really interesting just in terms of understanding from a chef's perspective, how do we layer ingredients, how do we layer flavors in order to create something that is balanced, that's interesting, that's harmonious, and ultimately something that's delicious. And so obviously this book is super helpful if you are a recipe developer or food blogger and you're coming up with recipe concepts and ideas and you just want a little bit of creativity thrown in there, or just at least some chef's perspective on those particular ingredients. But then as a food photographer, I also find this super interesting. Now, of course, there are those days when I'm like, okay, I gotta shoot something today. What am I gonna shoot? And I've got the world is my oyster and I have a completely blank slate and I'm just like, I don't know what to shoot. Well, open this up and just kind of blindly say, okay, what are we going to shoot today? Cinnamon. Okay, well, cinnamon's great. What can we do with cinnamon? And suddenly it's really helping you kind of narrow those concepts so that you don't have all of this like overwhelming feeling of what am I gonna do? I also find this super helpful for when I'm working with a client and we're kind of going through the art direction stage of creating concepts that we're gonna photograph. And so say for example, the client is a honey client, right? They make honey. Well, what are things that go with honey? How can this inspire us to create a particular scene, a particular image, and know that the ingredients make sense together? Because that's the thing with food photography, right? It's not just about making food look beautiful, it's about making food that is actually delicious and that somebody is going to want to eat. But also in this world where food imagery is so pervasive, we sometimes need to kind of get outside the box. Again, I love a good caprese, but what are other things that we can do with tomatoes that might be more interesting? So let me just kind of walk you through how I use this book. I'm sure there are all sorts of different other applications, but for me in my process, what I'll typically do, like say for example, creating this video, I needed to create some sort of food that went along with this video. So I thought, okay, it's October now, which means we are in full-on pumpkin season. So let's embrace pumpkin. So I went to the pumpkin section and started looking through. Now the thing with pumpkin, you know, it says we can take that and we can bake it, we can braise it, we can grill it, we can puree it or roast it. Now I love roasted squash and roasted pumpkin. So I was like, okay, I want to do roasted pumpkin, but we could go sweet, we could go savory, or we could go sweet and savory. And so of course I saw in there, we've got cinnamon, we've got cloves, and I'm like, yes, let's like rock on the warm spices. I need every excuse I can get to use my cinnamon sticks, and then maple syrup, which I thought, okay, yeah, that'll really help add to the caramelization on that pumpkin. But we need to kind of balance that out because that's a lot of sweet. And so I thought, well, from a texture perspective, let's throw some pumpkin seeds because I know I have pumpkin seeds, and naturally pumpkin seeds go with pumpkin because we're gonna have that soft roast pumpkin. So we want the crunchy of the pumpkin seeds. And so then it's like, well, we've got the sweet and we've got the richness, but we really don't have any acid in here. And again, this book really helps kind of explain how we layer flavors in. It's just the same way that we layer things into an image, right? That we want things that are big and things that are small and things that are bright and things that are dark, so that we really create contrast, it creates interest. It's the same thing with food. And so if I want to add some acid, it says I can do kumquats, which I love kumquats, but they're not in season right now. So it says we could also though use orange, and orange would definitely be a great little addition of some acid. But then it's also like, well, orange isn't like the most acidic in terms of the world of citrus. So let's also throw just a little bit of reduced balsamic vinegar in there for a real added punch. But then I thought, okay, we've got all of this going on. Now I need sort of one final component that also breaks it up visually, because as you start to think through these various ingredients, you know, we've got orange and we've got the dark balsamic and we've got kind of the orangey yellow pumpkin seeds, but you're like, oh, we need to kind of change this up a little bit. So thinking about herbs, you know, things like rosemary, or maybe we could throw sage in there, both things that are recommended in this list. And then I thought, you know, I really want to top it off though with something for a little bit of contrast, so that it's not just orange on orange on orange. And so then I thought some sort of cheese on top. So I went to the grocery store then with sort of my list of ideas, not still fully sure, but I've got kind of this general concept that we're gonna have the roasted pumpkin, what things can go with that. Well, of course I get to the store and it's like, well, there's no pumpkin, but they did have kabocha squash. So I thought, perfect, that's like Japanese pumpkin, let's go ahead and go with that. It's still gonna give me the orange, I can still roast it, it'll be beautiful. But you do have to then start to take these ideas of inspiration and flex with them depending on what's available. So as you can see, fairly quickly, I went from just kind of the general idea of pumpkin to a very specific dish in mind. It didn't take a whole lot of time, and that not only is this going to be a fun dish to photograph, but it's also going to be delicious because again, it's informed by the expertise of world-renowned chefs. I hope you have a fantastic day. I hope you stay out of trouble, and I will see you again here real soon, okay? Bye.
When your F-stop's full of ISOs, you need the flavor Bible.
You know what goes with corn? Clams. Bet you didn't expect that.
Beef oxtails, allspice, anise, basil. Oh, gnocchi.